can I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for her statement in advance sight of it. Although supportive of the principle of devolving power to local areas, we are totally against her plans to abolish every county council and every district council in England.
When he talks about council debt, it's his government that has pushed councils to the brink.
And the unprecedented mass postponement of local elections for at least 1 year.
This is not democracy, this is dictatorship. These words echoed through Parliament as Angela Rayner announced the postponement of local elections. But is this really an attack on democracy or a necessary step for better local governance? We break down the controversy and its implications for millions of voters. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Angela Rayner's grand vision for local governance reform quickly turned into a political nightmare, leaving her reputation in tatters and her career hanging by a thread. What started as a supposedly once-in-a-generation project to unlock growth and shift power to local communities soon unraveled into a mess of accusations, lies, and democratic undermining.
We've put £69 billion, a real 6.8% cash terms increase into local authorities. In contrast, Madam Deputy Speaker, 23% cut in the last decade under the Conservatives.
Today is a very worrying day for democracy in this country. She is making local government less accountable to the people and more accountable to her.
And he talked about impact on local services. We are working with councils to inject the money and resources so that they can deliver for local people.
When Rayner first announced her plan, she painted a rosy picture of empowered local councils and thriving communities. But it didn't take long for opposition MPs to smell a rat. They immediately challenged the legitimacy and motives behind the plan, accusing Rayner of pushing a thinly veiled socialist agenda under the guise of reform. One Tory MP didn't mince words, calling it delegation, not devolution. The implication was clear. Rayner's plan wasn't about giving power to the people, but about centralizing control under her own party's umbrella. It's a classic political move. Promise the world, deliver a postage stamp. But the real bombshell came from Dr. Andy Mock's paper on the potential power drain for local councillors. His research suggested that Rayner's plan could actually strip local elected officials of their authority, concentrating power in the hands of unelected regional bodies. So much for people power, eh? As the details emerged, it became clear that this wasn't just a case of political spin gone wrong. Rayner's plan involved postponing local elections for a staggering 5 million voters. That's not just moving the goalposts, it's tearing up the entire pitch and building a car park. The scale of this democratic interference is hard to overstate. Imagine waking up one day to find out your right to vote has been put on ice because some politician in Westminster decided they knew better. It's the kind of thing that makes you wonder if we're living in a democracy or a badly written political satire. But here's the kicker. Rayner tried to spin this massive disenfranchisement as a positive. She claimed it was all in service of her grand vision for local governance reform. It's like cancelling Christmas and trying to convince everyone it's for their own good because you're redesigning Santa's sleigh. The backlash was swift and severe. Members of Parliament from across the political spectrum were up in arms. Even some of Rayner's own Labour colleagues were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. After all, How do you defend postponing democracy in the name of improving it? As the dust settled in Parliament, a storm was brewing beyond Westminster's walls. Reform UK, the upstart political party, wasn't about to let Rayner's plans slide without a fight. They threw down the gauntlet, accusing the government of something far more sinister than mere incompetence: outright collusion. In a scathing video petition, Reform UK didn't mince words. They accused Labour and Tory councils of working hand in glove to postpone elections, painting a picture of political elites desperately clinging to power. Their message was clear and damning. Only dictators cancel elections. It was a calculated move, designed to tap into the public's growing distrust of the political establishment. But Reform UK didn't stop at accusations. They called on citizens to take action, urging them to sign a petition, demanding that the votes be held as scheduled. The subtext was clear. Westminster was quaking in its boots, terrified of the electoral threat posed by Reform UK. It was a bold claim, but one that resonated with a public increasingly disillusioned with the status quo. Meanwhile, local council leaders were adding their voices to the chorus of discontent. These weren't just faceless bureaucrats. These were the people on the ground, dealing with the day-to-day realities of local governance. And they weren't happy. One leader, speaking on condition of anonymity, didn't pull any punches. This isn't an invitation, it's an instruction. The message was clear. Local government should answer to its residents, not to the whims of Westminster. As the pressure mounted, Rayner found herself in an increasingly precarious position. Her grand vision for local governance reform was being torn apart from all sides. But Rayner, never one to back down from a fight, came out swinging. In a spirited defense of her plan, Rayner doubled down on her promise of a once-in-a-generation project. She painted a picture of a brighter future, one where power would shift to local communities and growth would be unlocked in regions long neglected by Westminster. Her words were carefully chosen, designed to appeal to a public weary of empty promises and unfulfilled potential. "It's a plan for putting more money in people's pockets," Rayner declared, her voice steady despite the growing storm around her. She spoke of improved local services, of communities empowered to shape their own destinies. It was a vision of a Britain transformed, a country where the balance of power had shifted away from the corridors of Westminster and into the hands of ordinary citizens. As the dust settles on Rayner's bombshell announcement, the political landscape trembles with uncertainty. The postponement of elections to May 2026 has ignited a firestorm of controversy, leaving many to wonder if this once-in-a-generation reform will be Rayner's crowning achievement or her political epitaph. With millions of votes now hanging in the balance, the battle for local democracy has only just begun. Critics argue that this delay is nothing short of a power grab, centralizing authority under the guise of reform. Supporters, however, insist it's a necessary evil to pave the way for meaningful change. As protests swell and legal challenges loom on the horizon, Rayner finds herself in the fight of her political life. The question on everyone's lips: can she weather this storm of her own making, or will her vision for local governance be swept away in the tide of public outrage? The coming months will be crucial. With every passing day, the pressure mounts on Rayner to justify her controversial decision. Will she emerge as a visionary leader who dared to shake up the system, or will history remember her as the politician who tried to silence the voice of the people? As the 2026 elections draw nearer, One thing is certain: the eyes of the nation will be watching, waiting to see if Rayner's gamble pays off or if it spells the end of her political ambitions.